you know Brock?
Yes.
Yes.
And Rick and Jeremy. And they will be here to run through the Reader's Theater version of Lewis and Clark's Journey West. So enjoy.
Lewis and Clark's Journey West. I'm speaking about an expedition to the west with Captain Lewis and Captain Clark, who are appointed by the President of the United States to explore the interior parts of Northern America, to ascend the Missouri River with a boat, and then go to the Western Ocean. If we live to return, and if we make great discoveries as we expect, the United States has promised to make us great rewards. They were a small party charged with going where no one from the civilized world had ever gone, to open one of the last great wilderness regions of Earth, a place they thought might still hold woolly mammoths and other prehistoric creatures. Surviving the journey and discovering what was out there was as amazing to them as a journey to the moon was to us. To lead this dangerous expedition, President Thomas Jefferson chose his chief aide, Meriwether Lewis, a skilled soldier and woodsman. He called him a man of courage, undaunted, with qualifications as if implanted by nature for this express purpose. He was only 28. Lewis wanted a co-captain for this long and risky mission. He chose to ask his old Army commander, William Clark, who was 4 years older, an expert map maker, and a proven leader. Lewis asked Clark to join him.
In this enterprise, with its dangers and honors, there is no man on earth with whom I should feel equal pleasure in sharing them as yourself.
Clark answered Lewis's letter.
My friend, I join you with hand and heart.
Fearing they would never return, but knowing that if they made it, they would forever change the course of history, they undertook the mission. At the time, the great powers of the world could only guess what existed in the uncharted West. Native Americans already called this land home, but other nations such as France, Spain, and Russia, and Britain hoped for a wealth of natural riches and had staked competing claims to Canada and the Oregon country, the Pacific Northwest, and an immense tract called Louisiana. By sending an expedition into foreign land, Thomas Jefferson hoped to open the West up for the United States. In 1803, a surprise, Napoleon offered to sell the entire Louisiana territory. The U.S. quickly purchased it for $15 million, more than doubling the size of the nation. To cross this unknown land would be amongst the most ambitious and difficult journeys ever conceived. Clark wrote in his journal,
All in health and readiness to set out, boats and everything complete, with the necessary stores of provisions, though not as much as I think necessary for the multitude of Indians through which we must pass.
the young American soldiers and French-Canadian rivermen, handpicked for strength and wilderness skills, pushed off upstream from St. Louis. Among them was a man named York, Clark's slave and companion since childhood. All were leaving their families behind for years. Their main mission was to find a water route to the Pacific, but they were also searching for the long-hoped-for Northwest Passage. Lewis was a studious and solitary man. Under Jefferson, he had been trained to observe and record for science every new thing he saw, and he spent hours exploring alone with his dog. In this unfamiliar territory, just collecting a specimen could be dangerous. Early in the journey, Lewis licked an unfamiliar rock that gave him severe stomach pains. It is surmised that the rock was arsenic. The greatest challenge they faced every day was the difficult work of moving tons of gear upriver against the full flood of the powerful, unpredictable Missouri.
The sergeant at the helm ran under a bending tree and broke the mast. I am tormented with mosquitoes and ticks.
The barge run foul 3 times a day on logs. Happily, no injury was sustained, though the barge was in imminent danger.
Past a bad sandbar where our tow rope broke twice, a storm struck our boat and would have thrown it up on the sand island and dashed to pieces in an instant had not the party leaped out and kept her off.
Some days they made only a few miles, with more than 3,000 to go. Clark was a practical and plain-spoken man. He typically commanded the men on the river. His map-making skills were of great value to the expedition and to opening the West. As they pushed up the Missouri toward present-day Omaha, Nebraska, they were deep into Indian lands. Traders and trappers had been up here, but no well-armed military party.
A party of Odo and Missouri Nation came to camp. Captain Lewis and myself sent them some roasted meat. In return, they sent us watermelons.
Lewis had studied medicine in preparation for the journey. He brought along all that he could expect to need, but some medical situations were beyond anyone's ability to help. Sergeant Floyd became ill with what Lewis called Belliose colic. The men tried bleeding him, and giving him thunderclappers, a powerful laxative, but it was to no avail. Every man was attentive to him, especially Clark's slave, York.
Been up the greater part of last night with Sergeant Floyd, who is as bad as he can be. He expired with a great deal of composure, having said to me before his death that he was going away. We buried him to the top of a high round hill overlooking the river and country for a great distance. Situated just below a small river without a name, to which we named, called Floyd's River, the bluff Sergeant Bluff, Floyd's Bluff, we buried him with all the honors of war, much lamented. This man at all time gave us proof of his firmness and determined resolution to do service to his country and honor to himself.
A cedar post with his name, title, and date marked the gravesite. Captain Lewis read the funeral service over him. The expedition had only been 3 months into the journey. They knew more deaths could come as they pushed on into the heart of the Great Plains.
The immense river waters one of the fairest portions of the globe, nor do I believe that there is in this universe a similar extent of our country.
In this vast grassland, Lewis discovered new species, including animals that barked. Like little dogs, he wrote. They would be named prairie dogs. Lewis and Clark were under orders to be friendly with native tribes. Lewis also let them know in full military dress that the United States now claimed their land.
Children, we have been sent by the great chief of the 17 great nations of America to point out to you the road that you must now walk, and to inform you that a great council was lately held between this great chief and your old fathers.
There were medals and small gifts for now, but in the future, Lewis told them, other Americans would arrive with a wealth of trade goods. Lewis and Clark were passing through a world unknown to them, but well known to the Arikara, Sioux, and Omaha, to the Crow, Cheyenne, and Blackfeet, to more than 170 tribes and hundreds of thousands of people living west of the Mississippi. Hunters, farmers, fishermen. Some traded peacefully, some were regularly at war. The Teton Sioux were the most powerful tribe on the Middle Missouri. They controlled traffic on that stretch of the river and had stopped traders before. The expedition now approached Teton land and a tribe that had the superior numbers to annihilate them. The encounter did not go well.
3 of the young men seized the cable of the boat, and the second chief was very insolent, declaring I should not go on.
Finally, Chief Black Buffalo waved his men off. The entire expedition could have ended that day, near the present site of Pierre, South Dakota. They had come some 1,600 miles in 5 months, but ahead lay the long, bitter cold of winter on the northern prairie. Lewis and Clark hoped to stay the winter near the Mandan and Hidatsa, who were often visited by traders. The tribes welcomed them as friends, and the Mandan called them Masi, the pretty people. Together, their 5 villages were home to some 4,000 people, more than lived in St. Louis at the time. Nearby, the expedition settled in for 5 months of bone-chilling cold.
The thermometer stood at 45 degrees below zero. Snowed all day, ice ran thick and air cold. 3 men frostbit badly.
The captains knew almost nothing about the land of the West. They hired an interpreter, a French fur trader named Charbonneau. He had 2 young Shoshone wives captured by the Hidatsa in a raid. One was called Sacagawea by the Hidatsa and was about 16 years old and pregnant. Tribal leaders such as Black Cat told him of a chain of mountains far to the west that could be crossed in half a day, but they would need horses. Sacagawea's tribe, the Shoshone, would have horses and might help. In winter quarters that they called Fort Mandan, the captains prepared a shipment for President Jefferson to be taken back in the keelboat by some of the men in spring. Corporal Warfington would lead this return trip with its valuable load. Clark drew a map of the land while Lewis packed what he had collected, including dozens of new plants and animal species. Meanwhile, Sacagawea gave birth in February, a difficult labor assisted by Lewis. Tiny Jean-Baptiste Charbonneau, fondly known as Pomp, became the final member of the expedition.
We were now about to penetrate a country in which the foot of civilized man had never trodden. The good or evil it had in store for us was yet to determine. I could but esteem this moment of my departure among the most happy of my life.
Sacagawea quickly became more important to the expedition. She showed them edible plants and roots, white apples, wild artichokes, and licorice. At one time, her presence with the baby showed the natives that this was not a war party. When a boat overturned in a strong wind, it was Sacagawea who saved their most important items, like Lewis's records. In present-day Montana, the expedition came to a fork in the river and a critical decision.
Which of these rivers was the Missouri? To mistake the stream would not only lose us the whole of this season, but would probably so dishearten the party that it might defeat the expedition altogether.
The Hidatsa had told the captains to look for a waterfall as proof that they were still on the Missouri. What Lewis found would test the strength and spirit of his men. The Great Falls of the Missouri were 5 massive cascades. To continue, they would have to carry everything vital to the expedition on a detour of more than 17 miles around the falls and over rough terrain.
We all believe that we are about to enter on the most perilous and difficult part of our voyage. All appear perfectly to have made up their minds to succeed in the expedition or perish in the attempt.
At every halt, these poor fellows tumble down and are asleep in an instant. Some are limping from the soreness of their feet, others faint and unable to stand, yet all go on with cheerfulness.
The grueling portage left the men badly worn down, with the mountains still to come. But they willingly followed their captains. They had lost almost a month at the falls, and they needed to find the Shoshone and obtain horses before the cold winter set in. Sacagawea now recognized places from her youth that could help guide the men, but the Shoshone remained elusive. Finally, Lewis set out with a scouting party to search for them.
If we do not find them, I fear the successful issue of our voyage will be very doubtful.
Clark and the rest of the men labored on through frigid water that was barely passable. They planned to reunite farther upriver once Lewis had found the Shoshone. Ahead somewhere was the Missouri's source. From there, the men hoped for a quick mountain crossing and an easy ride downstream to the Pacific Ocean. Ahead of the boats, Lewis made an historic discovery. The source of the great Missouri River had finally been found.
I had accomplished one of those great objects on which my mind has been unalterably fixed for many years.
From the continental divide above, Lewis hoped to see a river heading westward toward the ocean. Instead, he confronted a scene of crushing disappointment.
I discovered immense ranges of high mountain tops still to the west of us, with their tops partially covered with snow.
The need for horses was now more important than ever. The very next day, Lewis finally made contact with the Shoshone and persuaded them to accompany him to meet with Clark on the river. Once again, the entire fate of the expedition was in the hands of the native people who had never seen strangers like these before. As Sacagawea began to interpret, the stakes could hardly have been higher. Suddenly, she paused. Across the years of separation from her tribe, Sacagawea recognized Kamahewit, the Shoshone chief, as her brother. As the translation proceeded from Shoshone to Hidatsa to French to English, the two captains must have realized that once again, they were extraordinarily lucky. They would have their horses. They spent more than 2 weeks with the Shoshone, a time of reunion for one and a time of rest for them all. But ahead, a mountain barrier whose size no one had anticipated loomed like an immense wall. The United States lay behind them now. Ahead lay lands claimed by Britain, Spain, and Russia. They entered the Bitterroot Range of the Rocky Mountains near today's Montana-Idaho border. An early storm brought bitter cold and made a dangerous crossing even more difficult, coating the steep slopes in snow and ice. The Shoshone guide, Old Toby, even lost the way for a time.
I could observe high, rugged mountains in every direction as far as I could see.
Worst of all, there was almost no game. The crossing became a starvation trek.
We suffered everything cold, hunger and fatigue could impart.
I have been wet and as cold in every part as I ever was in my life. Indeed, I was at one time fearful my feet would freeze in the thin moccasins which I wore.
After 2 agonizing weeks, they had nothing left to eat but a little soup, bear oil, and candles. Desperate, Clark and a small party went ahead, hoping to find a way out of the mountains. Clark finally found a way down from the snow-covered mountains to a lush, open country. They were found by children of the Nez Perce tribe and made their way to a nearby village. As the story goes, the strangers might have been killed but for an old woman named Watkakuis, who pleaded for their lives. She had been helped by white men in the past to return to her tribe after being kidnapped. For 2 weeks, the Nez Perce provided food and comfort. Lewis would later call the Nez Perce
The most hospitable, honest, and sincere people we met within our voyage.
For the first time since setting out 17 months before, they were going downstream. But ahead were rapids so dangerous that the nearby tribes gathered to watch the white men drown. They were heading down the Columbia, the great river of the Northwest. It was the last highway leading to the Pacific, the realm of tribes such as the Yakima, Umatilla, Walla Walla, and Chinook. There was one all-consuming thing on their minds.
This great Pacific Ocean which we have been so long anxious to see.
Finally, the moment was at hand. After a year and a half of exhausting struggle,
Ocean in view!
Lewis must have felt triumphant. His party had done what many considered impossible. They had made it all the way to the Pacific, alive.
The men appear much satisfied with their trip, beholding with astonishment the high waves dashing the rocks and this immense ocean.
It was late in the season, and they had to face the reality of another long winter far from home. The captains asked the entire corps to vote on the location for a winter campsite, the first time in recorded history that a slave or a woman was allowed to vote. Near what is now Astoria, Oregon, they built winter quarters, named Fort Clatsop after the nearby coastal tribe. They traded with their Indian neighbors for salmon, berries, and roots, and settled in for 4 miserable months. They were 12 days without rain. The winter dampened their spirits as well. They were homesick and longed to see their loved ones back in the States. Most at home assumed they were dead. March 1806. Nearly 2 years after setting out, they headed back up the Columbia River, crossing land now charted on Clark's new map. Eventually, they headed down the Missouri River on a return trip that would only take 6 months. In the end, the journey opened up the West to their fellow countrymen. It was the beginning of a new era for the United States. But the Native American way of life would never be the same. They had passed among some 50 tribes without whose help they might never have returned. At the Mandan and Hidatsa villages, they bid farewell to Sacagawea, who stayed behind with her family. She had endured every danger and deprivation while also caring for a child. Most of the men would never see her again. 28 months after setting out, Lewis and Clark reached St. Louis, ending an 8,000-mile odyssey. They were acclaimed as national heroes, the first U.S. citizens to cross the continent. Together, the Corps of Discovery had blazed the path for their nation's future. Amazingly, only one expedition member had died on the 2.5-year journey, but 2 Blackfeet Indians were killed in a regrettable skirmish on the return trip. The expedition mainly stayed true to its mission of developing friendly relations with the natives. The fate of the Corps: the other men moved on to different lives as trappers, soldiers, and farmers. Clark's slave, York, asked for his freedom when they returned, but he did not get it until more than 10 years after returning. Most believe that Sacagawea died only 6 years later, though some say she returned to the Shoshone and lived to be 100 years old. Her son, John Baptiste, was raised by Captain Clark. After a life of adventure in Europe and the West, he died in Oregon at the age of 61. Lewis and Clark received double pay and 1,600 acres of land for their efforts. Lewis was appointed Brigadier General of Militia for Louisiana Territory and a federal Indian agent. The Corps had traveled more than 8,000 miles, produced invaluable maps and geographical information, identified numerous animal specimens and botanical samples, and initiated peaceful relations with dozens of Native American tribes. This expedition remains one of America's most famous. The captains and their crew, with the aid of Sacagawea and other Native Americans, helped strengthen America's claim to the West and inspired countless explorers and Western pioneers. Finally, the moment was at hand. After a year and a half of exhausting struggle, we've already done this. That's it. That's it.